First thing we do is we start with a Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Today is Monday, June 22nd, approximately 7 o'clock at night. I'm calling to order the annual town meeting for the town of Dalton being held at Nesicus Regional Middle School. We do have a busy warrant tonight. We have 23 articles on the warrant. I would say by the return of service of the constable, I can see that it was properly posted in town, having been posted at the Dalton Restaurant, Greenridge Variety Convenience Store, Dalton General Store, the U.S. Post Office, Town Hall Bulletin Board, Kelly's Package Store, and Country Corner Package and Variety Store. Joining me at the front of the room today, we have our town clerk, Debbie Mary. We have Ken Walto, town manager. We have members of the Finance Committee, Jeff Noble and William Droshine III. He is the chair. We are joined by Janet Pumphrey, who is going to be, she is in for town council. And we have members of the select board, Robert Bishop, chair. We have John Boyle. We have Joseph Diver and Mark Strout. This meeting is being recorded, believe it or not, so please, one person speaking at a time. If you wish to address the assembly, please raise your hand and you'll be recognized. When you do so, please identify yourself by name and by your street address. We'll try to get through this as best we can. The first item that we always deal with on our meetings is I ask for a motion to waive the formal reading of the warrant. I don't want to go through the whole thing. And thank you. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed by saying no. Thank you. That's unanimous. Article 1, to change the location for all town election voting from the Dalton Community Recreation Association at 400 Main Street to the Dalton Senior Center located at 40 Field Street Extension. I need a motion. Someone has to read that again. Do you have it? Just I move that.
Can they hear me? To change the location for the town election voting from Dalton Community Rec Association on 400 Main Street to Dalton Senior Center, location at 40 Field Street Extension. My name is Joe Fish, 80 Daily. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I don't know that microphones are...
Yeah, Mike Hopper, 111 First Street. Live right across the street. Is there a plan in place where people are going to park? There's 40 or 50 parking spots at the senior center. Is the sidewalk on First Street going to be addressed? Because right now people tend to walk down the middle of the street, which wouldn't really be safe on election day because the sidewalk actually has to be mowed. It's so little of it is sidewalk now. So I was wondering if either one of those things are going to be addressed, especially the sidewalk.
Thank you. Judy? Stand up. If somebody has an answer.
Douglas Boyle, 186 East Housatonic Street. I'm opposed to this motion. As far as I know, we've been voting at the same place for at least the last 30-something years without any major incidents to my knowledge. I'm not a person who stands on ceremony and tradition, but in this case, unless someone can present an actual legitimate reason to make a change, we have a voting area that works, that's accessible, has everything we need, and has usually worked well, and there's no reason to change it. It's a place that's accessible, open, and visible that reminds people on the day if they forget that they need to be there to vote. and has served the community well, and I don't see a reason to change it to a smaller venue that might cause problems in the future. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sharon Liberto, 109 First Street. I agree with Mike. The sidewalk, while there is a new sidewalk that goes up to the senior center, it is not plowed in the winter. It is not shoveled. Everybody else in the town shovels, but that's not shoveled. And I feel two ways about why we should not use the senior center. One was the senior center was built for seniors, and it's being used for a lot of other things. And in the winter time, the seniors are one of our more vulnerable populations, and it is flu season. And that's one reason why I think senior center should not be used. We have a senior center built for seniors, and we have a community center for the community. And I don't see why we need to change a community thing to be at the senior center. And my opinion, it should stay at the community center.
Thank you. Anyone else? In the back. I'm sorry, we'll get to you in the back in a minute. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is June Roy Martin, 50 Bird Drive in Dalton. I believe that I am opposed to this motion. I feel the CRA has served as a great location for voting, and they've done things to help with handicap accessibility and also put in more parking. And it's a great central location so that if you forget to vote or you need a reminder, you see it. And I think it's worked really well, so I would oppose the motion.
Thank you. Judy in the back.
Peter Cachet, Old Windsor Road. I think we should change it just because I think it'll be more accessible to the elderly to go vote. I think being at the community house, it's harder for them to get in and out of there. So I think for the elderly, it'd be worthwhile to change it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Sue Doucette. I live at 10 Renee Drive in Dalton, and I too am opposed to the move for reasons that others have mentioned, but also because I believe it will disenfranchise our younger voters. They're not going to go to the senior center. It's a place for seniors. They'll go to the community house, and it's very visible on Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen? Oh. John, you could come up to this.
Hi, Bob Bishop, 54 South Street. For the record, the select board has twice voted to keep it at the CRA.
Thank you. Hold on.
Thank you. Deanne Filio, 36 Shivers Drive, Dalton. I'm opposed to the move. I'm usually at every election that we have. I have a table set up there usually for emergency management. And there are numerous people that come through every day that say, I'm glad you had the sign outside because I would have forgotten to vote otherwise. Unfortunately, we live in a time where apathy seems to be the way people deal with things. And I think that by moving it, we are going to set up a situation where too many people are not going to go and vote. I just feel that the best place for it is the CRA. It's been there for a long time. As it's been said a number of times, it's worked very well. I see no need to change it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
Judy Sharp, Central Avenue. I agree with some of the positions that have been presented here, and I'm opposed to the move. I think in this time we have to be aware and thoughtful about socially distanced. The CRA gives us space to spread out if we should need to structure things a little bit differently. Never been in the senior center yet, but my suspicion is it's too small.
Thank you. Mr. Boyle. Oh. Who?
I think it's Al.
Al Nato?
Simple, Al Nato, Elaine Avenue. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Thank you. Do you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. A quick word. I know we all want to get out of here as soon as humanly possible, like right now, but that's not going to happen. We're here for a while. I just want to look at this from a different perspective, this question that's before us this evening about changing the voting place. They all have good points, senior center and the CRA, handicap, parking, handicap bathrooms, accessibility. But there's one mitigating difference between the two locations, and that's visibility to the voters. And it absolutely, and I say this as a candidate, many days over the years I've stood out there as a candidate and watched the traffic and watched them stop. And this visibility is actually enhances the election. It drives the turnout. And I think it's one thing we want to do in this town is drive the turnout at elections. Particularly, we have a big presidential election coming up in November, and we definitely want to drive the turnout on that night.
Okay.
And the best way to do it is to have it at the CRA, where visibility is very high. Take it from somebody who stood out there and appreciates it as a candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, hearing none, seeing none. It's been moved and seconded. I'm sorry, I'm missing someone. Yes, Mr. Diver. Judy, Karen, one of you? Oh, come over, yeah. Come over here. Just don't spit on me.
I'll try not to. One thing to recognize is that this vote you're taking tonight is an advisory vote to the board. So whichever way you vote is an advisory to the board. And then we take up the vote in a select board meeting and either accept or reject that vote. But we want to hear from the community. 40 people got this on a petition to have it in front of the town meeting. So I'm in favor of whichever way that the town votes. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, hearing none, seeing none. Article 1 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of Article 1 signify by saying aye. All those opposed by saying no. It's unanimous, it fails. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to amend, pardon? No, I'm sorry, it's not unanimous. It's majority, thank you. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 23 of the town's general bylaws relating to the exemption from dog licensing fees for service animals as shown below, deleting the strike-throughs and adding the bold text, or to take any other action in relation thereto. I am not going to read the whole law as it's presented in front of you. I know everybody has their copy. Mr. Boyle.
Good evening. Before we start, I'd like to take a moment to recognize Ed Hollub's departure from the board. This is his last meeting. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it tonight, but he served the last 3 years on the board. We're going to miss his wit. And if you see him out and about, please thank him for his service, okay? Okay. I move that the town vote to amend Chapter 23 of the town's general bylaws relating to the exemption from dog licensing fees for service animals as shown below, deleting the strike-throughs and adding the bold text as set forth herein.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Diver.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we strike the last sentence stating animals that provide emotional support shall not qualify for the purpose of this section.
Can I have that? So this is a proposed amendment to the article that has been submitted, moved, and seconded, that is going to delete the last sentence of the bold paragraph. Animals that provide emotional support shall not qualify for the purposes of this section. So we're talking now only about the proposed amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by saying no. Okay, I need a count. Deb, I need a count on the question. I need a count. So what we're going to do is we have to have a count to determine whether or not the amendment passes. Everybody has their cards, so we're going to have you hold them up for your particular vote. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, hold up your cards, please. Okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, all those who are opposed to the amendment, please raise your cards. Thank you. Okay, the amendment passes, 30 yeses, 24 noes. Okay, so now we're talking about the article as amended. Is there any discussion? Yes, ma'am. Microphones? Stand up so she can see you. Thank you.
Can't hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, thank you. I live at 529 Kirchner Road. My name is Lynn Clements. And we brought this initially to the town when we were charged for a licensing fee for my husband's mobility dog. It's actually a violation of the Mass General Law to charge for a service dog, so that was the whole purpose in bringing the motion before the town.
Thank you. Anyone else? Down here? Yeah, Judy.
Sharon Liberto, 109 First Street. I would like to have a definition of emotional support animal. I mean, my dogs are an emotional support to me. Exempt. You know, what's the definition of an emotional support animal? I understand a service dog, but what's an emotional? You see on TV, you know, my emotional support peacock and snake and like that. I'd like a definition of who's exempt.
Well, the amendment that we just passed removed the language about the emotional support animal.
So I can't get a definition of what that means?
Town Council, Janet, do you have a definition of emotional support animal?
I don't have a definition, but I know that KP Law, who drafted the words of this, looked at the ADA, and it's completely ADA compliant. It includes anxiety. It includes psychological issues, and I think that that is inclusive enough to include emotional support.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor of Article 2 as amended signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Passes by majority. Article 3. To see if the town will vote to fix the maximum amounts that may be spent during fiscal year 2021 beginning on July 1, 2020 for the revolving funds established in town bylaws for certain departments, boards, committees, agencies, or officers in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to fix the maximum amounts that may be spent during fiscal year 2021, beginning on July 1st, 2020, for the revolving funds established in town bylaws for certain departments, boards, committees, agencies, or officers in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2, or take any other action relative thereto. The revolving funds are plumbing inspector, $15,000, electrical inspector, $10,000, tree warden, planning board, $5,000, cemetery department, $2,500, council on aging, transportation, $20,000, council on aging programs, $15,000, cemetery department, $5,000, legal advertising, $3,000, parks maintenance, $2,000, highway department, boom mower, $9,000.
Article 3 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Passes. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to adopt the schedule of compensation for elected officials for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to adopt a scheduled compensation for elected officials for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, or take any other action thereto. The schedule of compensation is as follows. Moderator, $413. Town clerk, $55,847. Select Board Chair, $4,832. Other Select Board members, $3,845.
Article 4 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed by saying no? Passes unanimously. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to determine what sums of money the town will raise and appropriate, including appropriations from sewer user fees, and to defray charges and expenses and debt service for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move the amounts of money set forth in the printed report of the Finance Committee for fiscal year 2021 totaling $8,078,091 be appropriated for the several purposes therein itemized. Each numbered item being considered as a separate appropriation, and that the same be expended only for such purposes.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of Article 5 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Passes. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020, a sum of money for the purpose of providing recreation and leisure time activities to the people of Dalton, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $60,125 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, for the purpose of providing recreation and leisure time activities to the people of Dalton.
Article 6 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 6 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Thank you, it passes. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money for the purpose of paying the town's share of the operating budget of the Central Berkshire Regional School District for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $7,818,789 for the purpose of paying the town's share of the operating budget of Central Berkshire Regional School District for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Locatell.
Richard Locatell, 46 Patricia Avenue. Before I speak to the motion, I'd like to introduce our new superintendent effective August 1st, and that's Leslie Blake Davis, and she's up there in the corner. As far as this motion goes, the amount the Finance Committee is recommending is below the amount that the school committee has adopted. So this constitutes a rejection of the school committee's budget. The gross amount for the school committee's budget is up 1.53%, which I think is modest. The Finance Committee's report tells you how the share for Dalton is calculated, and it's a very good explanation. The school committee feels that this amount is reasonable, and in light of the problems we're going to have with state funding, it's particularly important that we get the full amount from each of the towns, each of the 7 towns. So for that reason, I'd like to amend the motion I move to amend the motion by substituting $8,145,750 for the amount of $7,818,789 in the main motion for the CBRSD operating budget.
Dick, I need a copy of that. So before we get to the article, there's been a motion to amend the article by striking $7,818,789 and inserting in lieu thereof $8,145,750. Is there any discussion on the motion to amend? Yes, sir.
72 Bruce Drive. I would really like to say that I'm very disappointed with the Town Finance Committee, with them not allowing the town to have an up-down vote on this critical expenditure. The way it was presented, a yes vote is no, and a no vote is no. And what kind of choice is that? I also am a little disappointed at whoever printed these that left off that statement that says a yes vote in actuality is no, okay? And then I have a question. I think there are some people in the town that mailed in votes. Is that true? They had mail-in ballots?
Not for town meeting.
Not for the town meeting. Okay, then I support the full amount.
Thank you. You support the amendment. Anyone else? You? Okay. Mr. Droshine.
First, I'd like to thank you for putting that amendment in, only so that we could bring this out in front of everyone. The reason the Finance Committee did not support this increase, because we're already in a bit of a fiscal problem with the new Wacona Regional. In thinking in that manner, we felt that another 54 cents per thousand on houses was going to be a rather excessive amount of money with all of these things considered. And to top it off, we don't know where the state funds are going to go with the town as well as the schools. So in preparing for this, we're attempting to figure out where to come up with this amount of money. We may be well under the 2.5 levy limit at this point. Even if this goes through, we're still well under the Proposition 2.5 levy limit. But just because we're under that today, we can suddenly be underwater in just a year. And that's what we're up against right now. And we're up against it pretty hard at this point. So I don't support, as you can tell, I do not support the amendment just because the town is doing everything that we can to be fiscally responsible. The town's budget went down this year. Last year, the school committee was capable of making the budget nearly level last year. Why? It was stated at a meeting that budget was kept level so that the new school would pass. That was stated. That's, I believe, even in the minutes of a meeting. So all of a sudden, this year, we've got to come up with $1.2 million in capital. We're going to see that here shortly. Now all of a sudden, we have to dig even deeper into our pockets to cover the new budget that is out there. So I would advocate following the lead of the financial people, the people that go through these budgets, the people that look at the financial health of this town and look deep and see if you do indeed support a $300,000+ increase in the school budget for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Tom Callahan, Melissa Way. I think that we should just disregard too much talk about what was and not have to suffer bringing up old emotions. I fully support the amendment by Mr. Locketel and have full confidence in how the expertise was used to prepare for the proposed budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Diver.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Standing to support the amended budget, but I'm not sure how many people look at the details of what changed in the budget process. I see Mr. Boyno in the audience. Maybe you can highlight a couple of those key factors for the net increase. I think it's great programming, great strategy, but that might help with the voters. Thank you.
Would you identify yourself for us, please? Identify yourself for us.
Street. Also the Director of Finance for the Central Berkshire School District. First, I'll talk to last year's budget. I believe there was an overall 0.8 increase, but also with last year's budget, we had about 15 retirements, so that was a large portion of the savings. This year, we only have 3 retirements. On top of that, we did have some move-ins that are in out-of-district special ed placements. That is the biggest portion of this year's budget. I think it was over $250,000 was just out of placements. And we have to pay those. Those are students that move into our district. We just get the bill. We don't place them in those places, but that is the largest portion of this year's increase. I will also say with this year, especially with COVID and everything, we are looking at multiple grants. We're trying to offset that. I know Mr. Josine says we don't know what we're going to get from the state. We are applying for FEMA relief. We've also already received the CARES Act, which was through DESE. That is $320,000. That is to offset costs for PPE supplies for students. If we go back into a remote learning model, that will offset those increases. We do feel comfortable with what we are hearing from the state that we can make up that loss of revenue with the budget as is. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, she's not a resident of Dalton, but I wasn't sure if she wanted to speak to it at all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. This is a vote on the amendment to increase the school budget without voting on the article itself. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying no. I need a count. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, raise your cards. Thank you. You can put your hands down. Okay, all those opposed to the amendment, raise your cards. thank you. Thirty-eight in favor, 36 opposed. The amendment passes. Now we are voting on Article 7 as amended. Is there any further discussion on Article 7? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor of Article 7 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Have to do it again. I need a count. Ladies, you ready? All those in favor of Article 7 as amended, please raise your cards. Thank you. Okay, all those opposed to Article 7 as amended, please raise your cards. Thank you. Article passes. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money for the purpose of paying the town's share of the transportation budget of the Central Berkshire Regional School District for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $390,567 for the purpose of paying the town's share of the transportation budget of the Central Berkshire Regional School District for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020.
Article 8 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 8 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Passes. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money for the purpose of paying the town's share of the capital budget of the Central Berkshire Regional School District for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $1,374,948 for the purpose of paying the town's share of the capital budget of the Central Berkshire Regional School District for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020.
Article 9 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of Article 9 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Passes. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds a sum of money to the Reserve Fund, Account 132, for the fiscal year 2021, beginning July 1, 2020, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to transfer $65,000 from free cash in the treasury to account 132, the reserve fund, for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020.
Article 10 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 10 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Passes. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to transfer or appropriate from available sums a sum of money for the purpose of reducing the expected tax rate increase in the 2021 fiscal year, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to transfer $200,000 from free cash in the treasury for the purpose of reducing the expected tax rate increase in the 2021 fiscal year.
Article 11 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 11 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Thank you. Passes. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money from the Landfill Monitoring Continuing Appropriation Account number 991 to the Landfill Closure Account number 434, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine. I said 434. Four, three, three. We'll make the motion 433.
I move that the town vote to transfer $11,134 from the landfill monitoring account 991 to landfill closure account 433 for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020.
Article 12 has been moved and seconded. There was a typo. The land closure account is 433, not 434, as posted in the warrant. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 12 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Passes. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds a sum of money to the Reserve Fund, Account 132, for the remainder of fiscal year 2020, or to take any other action in relation thereto. We just did that? We're on 13. All right, well, then you vote that. Move that.
I move that the town vote to take no action under this article.
The move to take no action on Article 13. Article 13 appears to be a duplicate of Article 10. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Well, that one passes anyway. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to transfer and/or appropriate from available funds a sum of money to each of the following stabilization funds: General Stabilization Fund, Capital Stabilization Fund, Litigation Stabilization Fund, and Sewer Stabilization Fund, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to transfer $400,000 from free cash in the treasury in the following amounts to the following stabilization funds. $200,000 to the Sewer Stabilization Fund. $140,000 to the General Stabilization Fund. $10,000 to the Litigation Stabilization Fund, and $50,000 to the Capital Stabilization Fund.
Article 14 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of Article 14 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Thank you, that passes. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to transfer and/or appropriate from available funds a sum of money to the Other Post-Employment Benefits Liability Trust Fund to reduce the unfunded actuarial liability of health care and other post-employment benefits, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $300,000 from free cash in the treasury to the Other Post-Employment Benefits Trust Fund for the purpose of reducing the unfunded actuarial liability of health care and other post-employment benefits.
Article 15 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in, Sit up.
George Damaris, 72 Bruce Drive. It's a real quick question for the Finance Committee. Are we gaining on this? Yeah, are we going to reach a point where maybe there's enough in the trust fund to pay?
Yeah, Ken, you're going to have to come over here because we can't hear you on this side. You're already having a good discussion with George, but everybody else can't hear you.
Okay. Originally, the town had an unfunded liability of about $8 million in the past few years because of our free cash position. We've been able to lower that liability, as you see in the statement given to you, to $4 million. The $300,000 this year is the actuarially determined amount that keeps us up with the funding schedule that we're on.
Anyone else? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of Article 15 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Thank you, that passes. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to reauthorize employment agreements between the town and the highway cemetery superintendent, the highway cemetery foreman, and the police sergeant, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Bishop.
I move that the town vote to reauthorize employment agreements between the town and the highway cemetery superintendent, the highway cemetery foreman, and the police sergeant.
Article 16 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of Article 16 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Thank you, that passes. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to authorize payment of unpaid bills of previous fiscal years pursuant to the requirements of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 64, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to authorize payment of an unpaid bill of $1,201 to the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission for fiscal 19 stormwater management technical assistance pursuant to the requirements of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 64.
Thank you. Article 17 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Thank you, that passes. Article 18. This requires a two-thirds vote. To see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money for the fiscal year 2021 capital improvement program, including borrowing costs associated with said program and all other costs incidental or related thereto. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said sum under General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7, 3A, or any other enabling authority, and that the select board is authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $645,000 for fiscal year 2021 capital improvement program, including borrowing costs associated with said program and all other costs incidental or related thereto. That too, meeting this appropriation, the treasurer will, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said sum under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, 3A, or any other enabling authority, and that the select board is authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project.
Article 18 has been moved and seconded. Is there any question? And that's not working again.
Yeah, George Damaris, 72 Bruce. Did you read the number right? You said 600? Did I hear it right, or was I hearing it wrong? It's 500, right? 545.
It is 545,000.
One other question, it's just a clarification. How does this 545 relate to the money that's in the capital revolving fund? Yeah.
Bill, could you come up here and...
This is a portion of the capital project. In other words, this amount of money we would go out and borrow for, I'm assuming probably for about 5 years. And what it does is it helps keep the cost with relationship to the capital amounts being spent. We do have money in the capital stabilization, and I believe later on in the meeting we will use some of that money for some other capital projects that have to be done. Does that answer your question? Thanks.
Rick White, 31 Claremont Road. I'm the technology director for the Pittsfield School District, and I was the technology director for this school district. And I'm just looking at your IT rewiring line, and I'm wondering if where you got that price, and if that includes something other than rewiring, because it just seems high to me. Okay. To give you an example, I just rewired Crosby School in Pittsfield, and it cost less than $100,000.
Do me a favor and pull your mask down. Ask the question again.
So I'm just wondering about the rewiring line for the IT rewiring, and if that includes other equipment besides just rewiring. I just did a project for Crosby School in Pittsfield, and it costs under $100,000 to rewire that whole school. It's probably double the size of the town hall.
Thank you.
The
town received a state grant under the Community Compact Program to study its IT system. One of the recommendations of the consultant was to rewire the IT system in the town hall. Now, the range of the quote, and it wasn't a detailed quote, was from 150 to 200,000. I'm the one who chose to put the larger number in there, and we have yet to detail the specifications. So that's one of the things we have to do. So, because it's a borrowing, we won't spend that money if it's not necessary, but we didn't want to get caught short.
Mr. Diver.
Just to expand on that a little bit, it does provide other things other than the wiring. You know, updated servers, security patches, software, things of that nature going to the cloud, better, utilization of the systems, et cetera. So all those bells and pieces that come together provide a good security system too.
Anyone else? Yep. Mr. Boyle, come over here.
Mr. Moderator, I just want to raise a point of order. If Mr. Billy used the figure $645,000 in a motion, we need to change that by amending it now, or we're going to vote $645,000, which is an inaccurate figure. So as a point of order, I'm not sure how to proceed, but I stated your suggestion.
John, make a motion.
Okay, well, but if that's the correct way to do it, I don't want to make it worse. Okay.
Come over
I
here.
move, what article is it?
It's the same one we're on, Article 18.
Okay, I move that we amend Article 18 to read the correct figure of $545,000. $545,000.
Okay, an amendment has been made. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed by saying no. Thank you. Any further discussion on the article?
Hi, Richard Hall, 164 Greenridge Drive. Just on the line item for the installation of pedestal flashers, have we looked at solar-powered ones? And are we going to suggest that the Green Committee explore that so that we can see if we can find some extra funding for it? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walton.
Richard, was the question, are they going to be looking at solar flashers? Yes, they're intended to be solar. But I'm sorry, would you repeat? Yeah, maybe you should pull that down.
Is it going to be asked for the Green Committee to look at seeing if we can fund it under the Green Communities then? Saves the town some money.
I hadn't thought about that, but it's a good idea.
Thank you.
Mr. Diver.
And just for clarification, to the town manager, I think that we're Shared Streets Grant Program, that's 70K ask as well?
We may, we're looking at it now.
Okay, all right.
There's another state grant program out there. We've asked the engineers to look at whether it would be appropriate.
Yeah, I guess the news is we're going after as much grant dollars as we possibly can, where it falls and everything else of that nature, but Green Committee should probably look at the, specs and things.
Anyone else? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor of Article 18 as amended signify by saying aye. All those opposed by saying no. That passes. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money from available funds to be reimbursed by a grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in accordance with Chapter 90, Section 34 of the Massachusetts General Laws, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Drosheen.
I move that the town vote to appropriate up to the sum of $244,645 from available funds to be reimbursed by a grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in accordance with Chapter 90, Section 34 of the Massachusetts General Laws.
Article 19 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of Article 19 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Thank you, that passes. Article 20, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds a sum of money to fund additional expenses in fiscal year 2020 in Department Number 423, snow and ice incurred under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 31D, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move that the town vote to transfer $7,004 from salaries to expenses and to transfer $28,385 from free cash in the treasury to fund additional expenses in the Department 423 Snow and Ice incurred under the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 3D in fiscal year 2020.
Article 20 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Droshine.
I'd like to take a moment and explain what's happening here. This is done because the snow and ice budget is allowed to overrun during the winter months. It's the only budget that is allowed to do that within the guise of what we're doing tonight. The reason we're using the salaries is because there is room enough from that budget to zero out the salaries for this fiscal year and use some free cash from this fiscal year to zero the snow and ice budget out. And that will not show up on the fiscal year, on this coming fiscal year. So what it does is it allows us to zero out these accounts. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 20 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. Thank you, that passes. Article 21, this requires a two-thirds vote. To see if the town will vote to appropriate and/or transfer a sum or sums of money from the capital, sewer, or general stabilization funds as may be appropriate for the costs related to the fiscal year 2021 annual element of the capital improvement program, or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
That the town vote to appropriate and transfer $85,950 from the Capital Stabilization Fund for the cost as set forth related to the fiscal year 2021 annual element of the capital improvement program. This includes police department portable radios, $28,000. Upgrading 4 mobile data terminals and replacing some laptops for $7,894. Communications is $4,509. The highway is $30,000. Building maintenance is $8,537. And town hall is $7,010.
Article 21 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of Article 21 signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no. That passes. Thank you. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to negotiate and enter into an agreement for payment in lieu of taxes, pilot, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 38HB, and Chapter 164, Section 1, or any other enabling authority for both real property and personal property associated with a privately owned and operated solar photovoltaic facility to be located on the property owned by Berkshire Concrete and commonly known as the Dalton Gravel Pit. Assessors Map 217, Parcel 3, Assessors Map 105, Parcel 12, and Assessors Map 105, Parcel 16, for a term of up to 30 years on such terms and conditions as the Select Board deems to be in the best interest of the town, and take all actions necessary to implement and administer such an agreement or to take any other action in relation thereto. Mr. Droshine.
I move the vote to authorize the Select Board to negotiate and enter into an agreement for payments in lieu of taxes, pilot pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 38H, B, and Chapter 164, Section 1 of any other enabling authority for both real property and personal property associated with a privately owned and operated solar photovoltaic facility to be located on the property owned by Berkshire Concrete and commonly known as Dalton Gravel Pit. Assessors Map 217, Parcel 3, Assessors Map 105, Parcel 12, Assessors Map 105, Parcel 16, for a term of up to 30 years on such terms and conditions as the Select Board deems to be in the best interest of the town, and take all other actions necessary to implement and administer such agreement.
Article 22 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Hi, Richard Hall, 164 Green Ridge. I'm in favour of this. I did have a couple questions. In the article that was just read out to us, it says up to 30 years, but then in the explanation, it's proposed 20-year agreement. So the difference of 10 years is $250,000, basically. So I just hope the Select Board negotiates more towards the 30 years than the 20 years. The other thing that I see in the explanation is the town's retained an expert to help with negotiations. I hope there's a cap on that, just because it seems pretty straightforward. Instead of $2,000 a year, they want to give us $48,000 a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of Article 22 signify by saying aye. All those opposed by saying no. Thank you, that passes. Article 23, before we get to Article 23, I do want to thank people responsible for this setup tonight, the Nessicus IT department, Freddie Richards, Joe Sturgis, Director of IT, Principal Debbie White, John Ostrich of Dalton Community Cable, and Pat Pettit. And I also want to thank everybody for your cooperation and patience tonight. I know it's been a difficult night. It's been a hot night. Of course, there's no air conditioning in the gymnasium, but we made it, and thank you very much. Article 23. To see if the town will vote to recess until Monday, June 29, 2020 at 10 o'clock a.m. to 8 p.m. to meet in the Dalton Community House to choose and elect the following town officers and the determination of such other matters as are by law required to be determined by ballot. 2 members of the Select Board for 3 years, 1 moderator for 1 year, 2 members of the Planning Board for 3 years, 1 cemetery trustee for 3 years, 3 library trustees for 3 years, and 3 members of the Finance Committee for 3 years. Mr. Droshine. Oh, I'm sorry, Select Board. Mr. Bishop.
Mr. Bishop.
Get used to that.
No problem. I move the town vote to recess until Monday, June 29th, 2020, and thereafter to meet in the Dalton Community House from 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. and to choose and elect the following town officers: 2 members of the Select Board for 3 years, 1 moderator for 1 year, 2 members of the Planning Board for 3 years, 1 member of the Seminary Trustees for 3 years, 3 library trustees for 3 years, and 3 members of the Finance Committee for 3 years.
Article 23 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Thank you. I'd just like to say something real quick. Under these difficult times we're in right now, I'd first like to thank every member of the board, the Finance Committee, the Town Clerk's Office, everyone who helped to make this event happen tonight, and especially the residents of Dalton who showed up tonight to participate in our democracy like we did. Things are very unique tonight, and it's nice to see this happening. And I'd like to thank everyone for making this happen and see that our democracy is still thriving during what's going on right now, and I look forward to seeing all of you participating at the polls next Monday. Thank you for this. Have a wonderful night. Stay healthy.
Thank you. Anyone else? Article 23 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed by saying no. Thank you. That passes. Have a great night. Please socially distance on your way out.